Welcome to Talk Tantra to Me. It is such an honor to be holding space for this divine knowledge to make its way into your ears and lifestyle. Today, I'm going to be sharing with you a concept known as the golden shadow. So golden shadow is hiding a gift that you have within you because it gives you unwanted attention. So the term golden shadow work actually comes from, it's like one side of the shadow. And shadow work is a term that we use in healing modalities and in psychology, which relates to the working parts of ourselves that we deny or disown. And this concept was coined by Carl Jung, who is a Swiss psychiatrist. He describes the shadow as the qualities in ourselves that we see as undesirable, and therefore we are not fully accepting or consciously working to integrate them. So that's the shadow overall. And we have different tones to our shadow, and oftentimes people really demonize the shadow or make the shadow work out to be this, really hard, complicated sort of process that, really is about looking at the parts of ourselves that are really ugly that we're despising, and then we've got to change it, whatever. The golden shadow, though, is the part of the shadow that's actually the juice. It's our light. It's the part of ourselves that has medicine for the world that we're not sharing out of fear or out of judgment of what that part of ourselves means and the type of attention that it will bring us. So an example of golden shadow might be you actually have a really incredible talent for music, and you actually stifle that gift. You're never singing, you're never sitting down and playing at the piano, because then people get all excited and start giving you lots of attention, and that makes you feel uncomfortable, because then you feel maybe subconsciously that your worth is based on your musical ability, whatever it is. And so you never perform in front of anyone. And that's a very simple example, and I'll be giving other examples throughout this process. But in Jungian psychology, it's recognizing that we have these rejected parts of ourselves that we get to reclaim. And oftentimes we learn to, put parts of ourselves into shadow because we were praised for being good, or we were told we were bad for doing or acting certain ways. So then we learn to hide or disown parts of ourselves that we believe we will be judged for in one way or another by parents, by educators, by society, etc. And so we just hide that part of ourselves. For me, that part of me was my sexual healing abilities and my full erotic self and my self-love, my relationship to my body. I felt like I needed to stifle my self-love and stifle my sexual expression, because if I didn't, then I would be judged by society. I would be seen as a whore or whatever it is. So I learned to actually not talk about that part of myself. And that actually led me to really put off fully claiming my passion and my purpose. When I first really got in, it took me years to actually begin working in the spaces of Tantra and sacred sexuality, because it was so deep in my golden shadow. I had so much fear around fully claiming that and fully embodying it. And even as I started to do it for myself, and people started to notice, oh, there's this part of you that's coming online, and I want that for me. My fear was so deep, my golden shadow was so stifled, that I first just didn't even acknowledge it. One of the first people that told me, you should be doing this professionally, I completely disregarded what he had to say. And I didn't actually take him seriously. And it wasn't until he devoted himself to really shining a light into my golden shadow to show me and to create evidence of what was possible for me. And then when I did finally say, okay, actually, you're right. I think I do have a gift here. And I think that this could be my way of making impact and income. Even then, I spent a whole year only getting clients by referral and very like under the radar, because I didn't want to talk on Instagram or online about what I was doing out of fear of me being misconstrued as a sex worker, which, hello, I am. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing bad about that. In fact, it's a really golden, beautiful part of who I am. It is society's judgment that makes it bad or makes it wrong. There's lots of really beautiful, healing qualities in being a holy woman in this way. And I talk about that deeply in episode, hold on, I'm pulling it up really quickly as we're chatting. In episode, where is it? Pleasure Priestess, Holy Whore, and Sacred Prostitute, episode 79 of this podcast is actually one of my very favorite episodes, in which I fully claim my golden shadow. So I highly recommend you check that episode out if you're already feeling like juiced up and excited about this one. Another big part of me working through and bringing my golden shadow online was working with my inner critic, working with the imposter syndrome that was so deeply ingrained in me. And it's still something that I struggle with. And I also have an episode of the podcast where I address the inner critic. And I actually have a guided meditation to address the inner critic. And that's going to be episode 56 of this podcast. It's an inner critic guided meditation. So there are 2 resources for you off the bat if you're feeling a little bit of this golden shadow energy. And I also actually want to bring up one last episode, and that is on sexual shadow work. And that's going to be episode 25. So again, a lot of our golden shadow to me and what I work with very intimately is the sexual shadow, because we have so much guilt and shame and fear around our sexual desires and around communicating our desires and around just living in our bodies and being able to be present for pleasure. Sexual shadow work is a big part of that. And that's going to be found on episode 25 of this podcast. And I also have a free sexual shadow work workbook, which you can find at talktantra2me.com/free. So there are my additional resources that are all free. But getting back to this episode, recognizing that, the golden shadow and shadows in general are beliefs and patterns that are mostly lingering in our subconscious. If you're aware of something, you're like, oh, that's my shadow. That's you already bringing that shadow to light. And in fact, then it's not your shadow anymore. It's your responsibility to integrate that. But shadows are things that are lingering in our subconscious, and they are often unconsciously projected into our lives, affecting our ability to maintain, healthy relationships and take action in types of opportunity and to really tackle our greatest obstacles in soul expansion. An example of this is oftentimes when it comes to our golden shadow, we subconsciously make a lot of judgments on people that are actually like showing up in their light. So for example, someone that's on Instagram and they're talking about, hey, do some coaching with me. Here's what I can help you with. I'm really excited to help you with that. If a sign that you might have a golden shadow is actually judging that person and thinking, oh, who are they? Who do they think they are to like help me with that? I don't need help with that, or that's stupid, or whatever your judgment might be, or like they look so silly. pretending like they could be a coach. Who are they? It's often a reflection of ourselves, really actually wanting to be that coach and wanting to share our own light, or even seeing that same person having the opposite reaction, which is like, oh, I really wish I could do that. Like, they're so lucky they can do that. I don't have that skill. You actually probably do, or you have your own mess that could be a message that you're not sharing. And in Tantra, the relationship to shadow and shadow work is that our outer world is a reflection of our inner world. So our inner world, our subconscious and our conscious and our unconscious, is composed of thoughts and patterns that create stories in our minds, again, some of which we are conscious of or partially conscious of, but most of which we unconsciously allow to control our ability to see the world in presence and neutrality. It is the human default to react to what's happening around us based on stories in our subconscious, instead of being fully present to consciously take action based on our highest truth and our highest potential. Again, in that moment of, seeing that influencer on Instagram, oftentimes we immediately react with some sort of judgment to what they're doing. And oftentimes it's, well, I can't do that, or who are they to do that? Instead of, what if I did that? And what would that look like for me? What would be my unique medicine? So the magic ingredient to bringing light to our shadows, especially our golden shadows, is to set the intention, to allow us to acknowledge how deeply embedded trauma and conditioning shapes our decision-making process and our reality. And with this awareness, we're able to expand beyond our shadow and write our own narrative and bring things online. For me, I feel that, like, for so long, I stifled myself. I stifled my voice. I stifled my magic and my medicine, in some ways. And still to this day, sometimes I feel like the message that I have for the world is obvious, or that the market is oversaturated and there's too many people doing this work already and talking about sacred sexuality already. And maybe you feel like that too, and it keeps you from doing the thing. And I'm just begging you to do it anyways, because your unique story and your way of finding this has such relatable power to the people that are within your immediate circle that need this work, that need you, that need that golden shadow, whether it be your beautiful capacity to create art for the world that will speak to someone's soul, or maybe it is becoming that coach or that influencer or that leader that has the ability to impact others and to create expansion for yourself and for others, and to make income and impact for your own family and for yourself, to empower yourself in that way. And the really beautiful thing is, as soon as you start leaning into that, you'll start to see evidence. I actually have a file on my phone of screenshots of positive feedback that I've gotten over the years, like whether it's a review on my podcast that really lit me up, or it's an email from someone that, we worked together 6 months ago and they're still experiencing incredible results and they feel like their whole timeline has shifted. Or it's a dear friend that cried listening to one of my podcasts or meditations and is like, ah! Or, someone on Instagram that's really moved by my words. And that's something that, I would encourage you to start doing, to start looking for that evidence and use this episode as evidence. If you feel something alive within you as I'm speaking these words, and you know that you have a piece of that golden shadow, this is your sign to ignite that. This is your sign to do the thing, that thing that you feel like you're not worthy of doing or that you're scared of doing. Maybe your key to purpose, to the meaning of your life, maybe the key to true wealth or to true love. Another really big thing with golden shadow that's intimately related to me and my relationships is how long I submerged my desire and how long I felt like I needed to for so long in my relationships, when I would date someone, I felt like I had to rationalize my work and I had to over explain who I am because I was so afraid of the judgment. When in reality, the fact that I'm a pleasure priestess and I can unlock your codes and like have you have like the best sex life and help you be able to process your emotions and change your relationship to your body, like there should be like I should feel, quote unquote, should feel that there can be a line outside the door waiting to date me. But for so long, I felt like I was undateable because I felt I was so afraid of the judgment that I quieted that part of myself on for a long time. On first dates, I would avoid talking about my work as much as possible, or only talk about the surface level part of my work rather than talking about the nitty-gritty details, because I was afraid that it would turn people away. When in reality, I met my partner at one of my events where we're talking about sacred sex and we're doing practices about it. And how fucking cool and beautiful is that? Like, I wouldn't have met this person if I hadn't claimed that golden shadow. Wouldn't have found the love of my life if I wouldn't have claimed that golden shadow. How crazy is that? So there's a lot to be said for really owning up and finding this part of yourself. And I'm going to give you guys a few cheat codes for how to do that. So one of the first things that I recommend doing and setting the intention to do is to observe your jealous tendency, or to observe your envy of other people. So when you recognize yourself judgmental for how someone is showing up, whether it be online or in real life, consider why. Why is that? Is there something in them that I deeply desire to express or to show? And an example could be, again, having the envy of a coach, or maybe you see some woman wearing something and you're like, oh, I really wish that I could wear that. She looks so good. I don't have that. And it's like, oh, maybe there's a shadow of self-love that's available to be seen. And just something to consider as you're moving throughout the world. Another thing to consider is noticing where you admire or idolize someone. Maybe you continuously go back to the same teacher over and over again, and you love their teaching so much because it resonates so deeply with you. Consider what part of yourself could be a conduit for that medicine to move through you, but with your own unique filter and with your own unique audience that guru isn't able to reach, because they're not you. They don't have your, background. For example, like I have the ability to really tap into a market in the Midwest where I grew up, where this work is desperately needed, that many people from my high school, from my town wouldn't even come on their radar. Like Osho is not going to come on the radar. Osho or ISTA or any aren't going to come on the radar of someone from my hometown who might be scrolling through their feed and see something that I posted about the same work and my unique experience with it, for example. Another tip would be to examine your insecurities or your feelings of unworthiness. In what place are you feeling that inner critic, or are you feeling that imposter syndrome around doing the thing? And consider what your gift actually is, and look for that evidence of it in the world and in your relationships. And this is also something where you can get together with a friend or a family member and say, hey, I feel like I want to explore, building a business around yoga, and I'm feeling like I'm not going to be great at that. Do you witness me as having the business acumen or the mindfulness that would be the asset that I need to do this? So giving yourself permission to get different perspectives to create that evidence board. And that's again where it's really powerful to work with someone such as myself, because I'm your mirror and I can provide that evidence and help you see yourself more clearly to build that purpose and to step into that golden shadow. Again, often the parts of ourselves where we feel the most wounded or that there's something wrong with us is our greatest opportunity for stepping into purpose. Your pain becomes your purpose. Your mess becomes your message. And we get to figure that out together and build it together. Another thing to consider is flipping the script on any faults that you perceive or any like regrets or judgments. So examining like, what part of you do you think is bad or wrong that could actually be like your greatest blessing in disguise? So for example, the part of me that felt like, ooh, I'm like a really sexual being, but that's bad and that's wrong. And you can't be sexual and successful. You can't be sexual and spiritual. Those things don't go together. When in reality, like I processed that was actually not my belief. That was a belief that was given to me by society. The belief that sex is not success. You can't be sexual and successful, or that being overtly erotic is wrong or bad, or being super feminine is not going to be an asset in my business, etc. I actually realized like, I don't believe that. That's someone else. Someone else gave me that belief and I get to let it go and rewrite the story in my own narrative and from my own experience. And actually leaning into those parts of myself are the key to my success. They are my golden shadow. So those are some great ways to start with, stepping into the golden shadow and really igniting it and kind of figuring out what could your golden shadow be, whether it's something that's going to help you, call in your life partner or step into your purpose or just find more magic and pleasure in your beingness. Those are some really great places to start. That being said, again, I highly recommend working with someone in this capacity as well, just because having that mirror is invaluable. To have someone that's gone through this process countless times to guide you through step by step and be seen and have that space held is just incredible. I work with people who are dedicated to improving their lives from the inside out, from really going in to look at, where are the beliefs and the patterns I've adopted keeping me from my greatest potential? Where is my instinct to survive keeping me from my opportunity to thrive? We're working to dismantle false conditionings and fear-based belief systems around sexuality and intimacy, but also around your purpose and why your soul came to this world. So, in general, I like to say that, I'm not a teacher, I'm not a guide, I'm really a mirror to help you see yourself better. I'm not here to teach you or heal you. I'm here to help you see who you really are, to help you remember how to heal yourself, how to connect with yourself, how to empower yourself, right? So there are a couple of opportunities to work with me online in this capacity over a longer period of time. And that's definitely my highest recommendation if you're feeling called to this work. And I have a one-to-one mentorship based on sacred intimacy. So to me, the intention of sacred intimacy is to invigorate your human experience from a truly holistic perspective. So most programs and coaches avoid taboo topics such as sexuality, when really this energy that brought you into the world is often your greatest tool in healing and finding purpose and manifesting abundance, because it is literally the energy that creates life. So it touches all parts of life. In the Sacred Intimacy Mentorship, we'll also work with helping you gain confidence in communicating your needs, wants, and boundaries, dismantling those fear-based belief systems, connecting to your life force energy, falling madly in love with yourself, embodying the king or the queen that you are, building the security within yourself to feel safe to surrender sexually to other partners, Lots of tools there, and that's definitely going to be a little bit of a more broad container where we will work a lot with the chakra system to really empower you to build up that life force. Additionally, if you're feeling like your golden shadow is specifically related to your purpose and building business and making impact and income, then I recommend the business magnetism mentorship. This mentorship is for you if you have a new or slow growing business in the healing and expansive modalities. You feel like you have that big vision, but you're not really sure where to start or if it's possible. You might have that imposter syndrome or inner critic, and you see yourself as a rebel that desires to do business with ease without an alarm clock. And you're just kind of trying to figure out, how do I expand beyond this society soup of work and paying bills and sleeping? And you feel just like trapped in the system. So with that, I recommend the business magnetism mentorship. You can find out more about both of these mentorships at my website, www.talktantra2me, and then click the Work With Me tab. This episode is coming out, in mid-December. And I want to let you guys know that my prices will be going up in the new year. So if you are feeling called to this work and you're wanting to jump on this opportunity, please reach out ASAP before I bring those prices up. I restructured these programs midway through 2022. And with that, I kind of had a lower price point just because I wanted to see how the containers felt and what the energetic exchange was going to be like. And there's just a lot of value that is going into these programs. And I'm feeling like it's time to allow that value to be reflected in the energetic exchange, in the investment. But I want to give you guys one last chance to hop on at this lower price point before in 2023 when that increases. So definitely fill out the intake form if you're feeling interested in those experiences, and we'll flow from there. So with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for opening yourself up to the idea of sacred sexuality and shadow work and stepping into your purpose and all that good juju. With so much love and gratitude, have a sexy and spiritual day, and I'll catch you next week on Talk Tantra to Me. Ta-ta.